in the quiet corners of the internet back in the early 2000s. And once, there appeared an auction listing on eBay that would spark a global phenomenon of terror and intrigue. The item in question was a modest-looking wine cabinet made of dark wood and possessing two small doors that swung open to reveal a dark interior. The seller was a man named Kevin Mannis, who was a furniture restorer and antiques dealer living in Portland, Oregon. He claimed that this simple wooden box was responsible for a series of catastrophic events that had plagued his life and the lives of those around him. The listing did not just sell an object, but it sold a story of nightmares and ancient curses that would soon capture the imagination of the entire world. This is the story of the Dybbuk Box. Kevin Mannis found the box at a local estate sale in September of the year 2001. It was a typical yard sale held at a large house where the belongings of a recently deceased woman were being sold off by her surviving family members. The woman had been a survivor of the Holocaust who had escaped to Spain and then to the United States of America. She had lived to the ripe old age of 103. Mannis was looking for unique pieces to refinish and sell in his shop. When he spotted the wine cabinet, he thought it was a charming piece of history. He purchased it along with a few other items, not knowing that he was inviting a dark presence into his life. As he was leaving, the granddaughter of the deceased woman approached him with a look of concern on her face. The granddaughter explained to Mannis that her grandmother had always kept the box hidden away in her sewing room. She said that the old woman had always referred to it as the Dybbuk Box and had strictly warned the family never to open it. The grandmother had claimed that a Dybbuk was living inside the box. In Jewish folklore, a Dybbuk is a malicious possessing spirit, believed to be the dislocated soul of a dead person. Mannis thought the story was just a quirky superstition of an old woman. He offered to give the box back to the family if it held such sentimental value, but the granddaughter refused. She insisted that he take it, and she seemed desperate to be rid of the object. Mannis shrugged off the strange encounter and took the box back to his furniture restoration shop. Mannis placed the box in the basement of his shop, where he intended to refinish it later. He went about his business and left the shop for a short time to run some errands. When he returned, he found the place in a state of absolute chaos. The heavy metal security gates at the back of the shop had been locked, but somehow the glass doors behind them were shattered. Inside the shop was a disaster zone. Light bulbs had been smashed in their sockets, and the air was filled with a horrific stench that Mannis described as a mixture of cat urine and jasmine flowers. The heavy cast iron table saw in the workshop had been moved, and the shop was devoid of any intruders. It was as if a whirlwind had torn through the building without entering or exiting. Despite the terrifying state of his shop, Mannis did not immediately connect the vandalism to the wine cabinet in the basement. He assumed it was a break-in or an act of random violence by a local criminal. He cleaned up the mess and tried to return to his normal routine. However, the strange events began to escalate. Mannis decided to give the box to his mother as a birthday gift. She had always liked unique antiques, and he thought she would appreciate the craftsmanship. He refinished the wood and cleaned the brass fixtures. On the day he gave it to her, she suffered a massive stroke within minutes of receiving the gift. She lost the ability to speak for a time, and when she could finally communicate, she scribbled a chilling note that simply read, "Hate gift." The stroke was a devastating blow to the family, but Mannis still did not fully blame the box. However, his mother refused to have the item in her home and returned it to him. Mannis then gave the box to his sister, but she returned it within a week, claiming that the doors of the cabinet would open on their own and that she felt an oppressive weight in her home. He gave it to his brother and his brother's wife, but they returned it after complaining of a persistent smell of jasmine and rot. Mannis even sold the box to a middle-aged couple, but they found it abandoned on his doorstep days later, with a note saying it had a bad energy. It seemed that no one could keep the box for long without experiencing some form of distress or terror. Mannis eventually brought the box back to his own home. It was then that the nightmares began. He started having a recurring dream where he was walking with a friend and looking into the eyes of a demonic hag. The hag would then attack him and pummel him until he woke up screaming. He soon discovered that everyone who had been in contact with the box was having the exact same nightmare. His brother, his sister, and even his girlfriend all described the same old woman with the same terrifying eyes. This shared hallucination was the turning point for Mannis. He realized that the box was not just a piece of wood, but a vessel for something intelligent and malevolent. The warning from the granddaughter at the estate sale echoed in his mind. Curiosity eventually got the better of Mannis, and he decided to open the box to see what was inside. He found a strange collection of items that seemed to have no logical connection. There were 2 United States wheat pennies from the 1920s, a lock of blonde hair bound with cord, a lock of dark brown hair bound with cord, a small golden wine goblet, a dried rosebud, and a single granite statue engraved with Hebrew letters. The word on the statue was Shalom, which means peace. The presence of these items only deepened the mystery. Why would someone lock these specific objects inside a box that was supposedly haunted by a malicious spirit? The juxtaposition of the word peace with the chaos the box caused was a chilling irony. Mannis admitted that he was terrified of the box, but he also felt a strange responsibility for it. He listed it on eBay in hopes that someone with knowledge of the paranormal could take it off his hands and perhaps study it. The listing went viral. It was viewed hundreds of thousands of times and attracted the attention of paranormal investigators, curiosity seekers, and skeptics from around the globe. The description Mannis wrote was long and detailed, recounting every horrific event that had occurred since he bought the box. He included photos of the box and the items inside. The auction ended with a winning bid from a university student named Iosif Nietzsche. Nietzsche was a skeptic who thought the story was entertaining and wanted the box as a conversation piece. Nietzsche soon found that the legend of the Dybbuk Box was not easily dismissed. He claimed that shortly after the box arrived at his apartment, strange things began to happen. Lights would burn out in his room. Insects would infest his living space. He began to lose his hair, and his vision started to blur. He felt a constant sense of being watched. Nietzsche started a blog where he documented his experiences. He posted updates about the strange phenomena and his deteriorating health. The online community watched in horror as Nietzsche seemed to unravel. He eventually decided that he could no longer keep the box. He sold it on eBay again, hoping to pass the burden to someone else. The next owner was Jason Haxton, who was the director of the Museum of Osteopathic Medicine in Kirksville, Missouri. Haxton was a man of science and history, but he was also deeply interested in the artifacts of the unusual. He won the auction and had the box shipped to his office. Haxton approached the box with a mix of academic curiosity and caution. He did not believe in curses, but he respected the power of suggestion and the history of the object. Almost immediately upon receiving the box, Haxton began to experience physical ailments. He developed strange hives and welts all over his body. He coughed up blood and felt a constant fatigue that no doctor could explain. Haxton decided to investigate the history of the box more thoroughly. He contacted Jewish rabbis and experts in the paranormal to understand what a Dybbuk truly was. He learned that the word Dybbuk comes from the Hebrew word meaning to cling. It is a spirit that clings to a living person and causes them pain and suffering. The rabbis told him that the box was likely created to trap the spirit and prevent it from harming anyone. By opening the box, Mannis and the others may have released the spirit, or at least allowed it to exert its influence. Haxton began to work with Wiccans and other spiritual practitioners to find a way to seal the box and contain the entity once more. During his research, Haxton claimed to have uncovered the true origin of the box. He traced it back to a woman named Havla, who had lived in Poland before World War II. According to the story, Havla had used an Ouija board to contact spirits during the war, hoping to find answers about the fate of her family. She believed she had contacted a spirit that was not benevolent. To stop the spirit, she and her friends performed a ritual to trap it inside the wine cabinet. They placed the locks of hair and the other items inside as part of the binding spell. The box traveled with her when she escaped Europe, and she kept it hidden for the rest of her life. The story of Havla added a tragic and historical dimension to the curse. It was no longer just a ghost story, but a tale of survival and the trauma of the Holocaust. The Dybbuk was not just a monster, but a manifestation of the pain and suffering of that era. Haxton wrote a book titled The Dybbuk Box, in which he detailed his research and his own harrowing experiences. He claimed that he eventually found a way to seal the box using a ritual involving gold and prayer. He then hid the box in a secret location to protect the world from its influence. He refused to tell anyone where it was buried. The legend of the Dybbuk Box continued to grow. It caught the attention of Hollywood producers who saw the potential for a blockbuster horror movie. In the year 2012, the film The Possession was released. The movie was produced by Sam Raimi and was loosely based on the story of the Dybbuk Box. The film brought the legend to a mainstream audience and cemented the box's status as one of the most haunted objects in the world. While the movie took many creative liberties, it kept the core idea of a wooden box containing a malicious spirit that possessed a young girl. The release of the film sparked a new wave of interest in the real box. Paranormal investigator Zach Bagans, the host of the popular television show Ghost Adventures, became obsessed with the Dybbuk Box. He wanted to add it to his haunted museum in Las Vegas, Nevada. Bagans contacted Jason Haxton and negotiated the purchase of the box. Haxton agreed to sell it, but warned Bagans of the danger. Bagans displayed the box in a special room in his museum, where visitors could view it through a protective glass case. He claimed that he felt a dark energy emanating from the box the moment he touched it. He instituted strict rules for viewing the box, requiring visitors to sign waivers. Since its arrival at the haunted museum, the Dybbuk Box has been blamed for numerous incidents. Visitors have reportedly fainted, screamed, or burst into tears while looking at the box. Some have claimed to see shadowy figures moving in the room. Bagans himself has stated that he avoids the room whenever possible. One of the most famous incidents involved the musician Post Malone. Malone visited the museum and was given a private tour by Bagans. During the tour, Bagans touched the box and then touched Malone. Shortly after this encounter, Malone experienced a string of bad luck, including a plane emergency, a car accident, and a home invasion. Malone fans were convinced he was cursed. The connection between Post Malone and the Dybbuk Box became a viral sensation. It reignited the debate about whether the curse was real or just a series of coincidences. Skeptics pointed out that Post Malone is a celebrity who lives a high-risk lifestyle and that accidents happen. Believers saw it as undeniable proof of the box's power. They argued that the Dybbuk does not discriminate and will attack anyone who disrespects it. The incident only served to increase the mystique of the box and draw more visitors to the haunted museum. The box had become a celebrity in its own right. However, amidst all the terror and the hype, there remained the question of authenticity. Was the story true? Kevin Mannis, the man who started it all, has given conflicting accounts over the years. In later interviews, he admitted that he was a creative writer and that he had embellished the story to make the eBay listing more interesting. He claimed that the backstory about the Holocaust survivor was a fiction he created to add depth to the item. He said that the box was just a cabinet he bought at a yard sale, and that he invented the term Dybbuk Box to describe it. This confession shocked many of the people who had followed the story for years. Mannis explained that he saw the story as an interactive horror experiment. He wanted to see if he could create a modern legend using the power of the internet. He crafted the narrative carefully weaving in elements of history, folklore, and psychological horror. He argued that the curse was real in the sense that people believed it was real. The power of suggestion caused people to have nightmares and feel physical symptoms. He called it a placebo effect of terror. For Mannis, the Dybbuk Box was a masterpiece of storytelling rather than a supernatural artifact. Despite Mannis' confession, many people refuse to believe that the curse is a hoax. Jason Haxton, the man who wrote the book and researched the history, maintains that the phenomena he experienced were real. He argues that even if Mannis made up the origin story, the box itself might have accumulated negative energy over time. He believes that the belief of thousands of people has fed the entity, giving it a life of its own. This concept is known as a tulpa in Tibetan mysticism, a being or object that is created through sheer spiritual or mental discipline. In this view, the Dybbuk Box became cursed because the world wanted it to be. The debate between skepticism and belief is central to the legend of the Dybbuk Box. On one side, you have the rational explanation that it is a clever piece of fiction and a social experiment. On the other side, you have the visceral experiences of those who have encountered the box. The physical ailments, the nightmares, and the bad luck are hard to dismiss for those who have lived through them. Even if the original story was a lie, does that mean the current effects are fake? Can a lie become the truth if enough people believe in it? This philosophical question adds a layer of depth to the mystery. The box currently sits in the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, enclosed in its glass case. It is surrounded by salt and sage intended to contain the spirit. Every day, hundreds of people pay to see it. They stand in front of the glass and stare into the dark wood, searching for a sign of the demon inside. Some leave mocking the story, while others leave shaking with fear. The box has become a mirror, reflecting the fears and beliefs of those who look at it. It is a testament to the human fascination with the unknown and the desire to touch the darkness safely from behind a barrier. The items inside the box, the pennies, the hair, the statue, and the goblet remain with it. They are part of the enigma. Even if Mannis assembled them as props, they have become sacred relics of the legend. The lock of blonde hair and the lock of dark hair suggest a story of two people, perhaps lovers or sisters bound together by tragedy. The word shalom on the statue remains a silent plea for peace in the midst of turmoil. These objects ground the story in reality, giving the ghost a physical form. They are the tangible evidence of a narrative that has transcended its creator. There are other Dybbuk boxes that have appeared since the original story broke. Copycats and imitators have listed haunted boxes on eBay, hoping to cash in on the craze. They create elaborate backstories and fill boxes with creepy items. But none have achieved the same level of fame or notoriety as the original box. The Mannis box remains the gold standard of internet haunted objects. It was the first to go viral and the first to cross over into mainstream media. It set the template for the modern digital urban legend known as creepypasta. The influence of the Dybbuk Box extends beyond just horror movies and museums. It has influenced the way we look at antiques and second-hand items. Many people now think twice before buying a locked box or an old doll at a yard sale. The story tapped into a primal fear that objects can hold memories and that the past can hurt us. It reminded us that we do not know the history of the things we bring into our homes. Every scratch and stain on an old piece of furniture could be a sign of a dark history waiting to be unleashed. In Jewish tradition, the Dybbuk is a tragic figure. It is a soul that cannot find rest because of unfinished business or a life cut short. It seeks a body to inhabit so that it can complete its journey. The story of the Dybbuk Box twists this tradition into something more aggressive and demonic. It turns the sad, wandering spirit into a monster. This adaptation of folklore is typical of how stories evolve. They change to fit the fears of the current generation. In the age of the internet, we fear the unknown virus, the hidden code, and the invisible threat. Whether the Dybbuk Box is a genuine paranormal artifact or a brilliant work of fiction, it remains a cultural touchstone. It represents the blurring of lines between reality and fantasy in the digital age. It shows how a story can start in a small town in Oregon and travel around the world, growing stronger with every retell. It proves that we are still a species of storytellers gathered around the digital campfire, scaring each other with tales of monsters in the dark. The box is a prop in the great theater of the internet. The legacy of the Dybbuk Box is secure. It will continue to be debated, investigated, and feared for years to come. Zach Bagans will continue to guard it in his museum. Skeptics will continue to debunk it. And new generations of horror fans will discover the story and wonder if it is true. The box has become a modern myth, a legend that belongs to everyone. It is a reminder that the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create in our own minds. So we are left with the final question. Is the Dybbuk Box really cursed? If you believe Kevin Mannis, the creator, it is a story. If you believe Jason Haxton, the researcher, it is a vessel of ancient energy. If you believe Post Malone, it is a source of bad luck. Perhaps the answer does not matter. The fear is real. The nightmares are real. And the box is real. It sits there in the dark waiting for the next person to open the door and whisper the word that will wake the sleeper. Would you dare to open it?